This video covers Section 3 of the Orwell's procedures as they relate to adults at risk. Section 3 deals with how a report of an adult at risk of abuse or neglect is to be responded to. This section, when you access it in the procedures, comes in two parts. It comes in part 1 and part 2, and this video will explore what is contained in both of those parts. So starting with Section 3, Part 1, this part of the section deals with how we respond to a report of an adult at risk in relation to inquiries, checks and decisions that have to be made. So a reminder of what's been covered so far in Section 1 and 2. We've identified that an adult meets the definition of an adult at risk. That is our safeguarding concern. We've discussed that concern with the line manager or designated safeguarding person. We had the options of either no further action or providing services internally within the organisation in response to that concern. We had the option of making a referral to social services for a care and support needs assessment of the individual. And we had the option of reporting our safeguarding concern and submitting this to social services. So Section 3 now is in response to the report of a safeguarding concern being submitted to social services. When the report is received by social services, a reminder of what we covered in Section 2, that report will be acknowledged within 7 working days of receipt of the report. When social services receive that report, they will complete initial checks that are set out within the procedures. As part of those checks, they will ensure the information is accurate, consider any existing records they may hold as a social services department or more widely in the local authority, confirm whether consent has been obtained from the individual adult at risk, clarify if the police have been informed, and establish if there are other individuals at risk. All reports received by social services will be treated in the same way, regardless of whether the alleged abuse has taken place inside or outside the family, whether it is a repeat report on the same individual, and regardless of the source of the report. Once social services have completed those initial checks, they are required to make an initial decision. And within the procedures, there are 3 decisions to choose from. The first is that there is no further action to be taken. The second is that the adult has needs for care and support. And the third option is that there is reasonable cause to suspect that the adult is at risk. If decision 2 is reached, then social services must initiate a care and support assessment for that individual. If there is reasonable cause to suspect that the adult is at risk, then social services are required to initiate inquiries under Section 126 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. It's important to distinguish the difference between an inquiry and an investigation. An inquiry is the term that's used to describe the information gathering that will be undertaken by social services in order to determine whether any action needs to be taken. An investigation is a structured process for multi-agency cooperation to gather evidence and reach a conclusion as to whether people have been placed at risk or are at ongoing risk. For the purpose of this section, we are referring to inquiries. So, social services have made their decision that there is reasonable cause to suspect the adult is at risk. It is therefore required to initiate and undertake inquiries under Section 126 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. Those inquiries should be completed within 7 working days. And within the procedures, there is the detail that sets out what must be covered and the information that must be gathered as part of those inquiries. It is important to note that it is not simply an expectation that social services will undertake those inquiries themselves. Within the procedures, there is provision for social services to delegate the task of undertaking the inquiry to other practitioners. And if practitioners in other organisations are asked to undertake those inquiries, then they are required to comply with that request. You can see here there are a number of pointers for practice within the procedures to assist with the activity of undertaking the inquiries. But some of the key points that will be considered when completing the inquiries include: are those inquiries person-centred? Again, this is a nod back to the principles and the duties of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. Does the adult at risk have mental capacity, and how has this been established? Again, thinking about the content that we covered in section 2. Is criminal activity suspected? Is there a multi-agency approach to supporting this individual? And is the welfare of the adult at risk and others paramount? Once those inquiries have been undertaken within the 7 working days, social services as the lead is required to reach another decision. It's referred to in the procedures as an inquiry determination. So on conclusion of the inquiries, social services will determine whether one of the following 4 options have been met. Is there a need for immediate protection of the individual? Is the individual not at risk, but they have needs for care and support? Is the adult at risk and action is needed to protect them? And is there no further action to be taken? The procedures go on to set out what must be recorded in relation to the inquiries that are conducted. The procedures then go on to describe our duties and responsibilities in relation to strategy, discussions and meetings. If the section 126 inquiries have concluded that the adult is at risk and action is needed to protect them, then the Social Services Department will initiate a strategy discussion or meeting. The purpose of the strategy discussion or meeting is to determine the action that needs to be taken to ensure the safety, care and support needs of the adult at risk are met. So before we explore the remit and the purpose of strategy discussion, a reminder of the stages that we followed. The concern has been identified, discussed with the line manager or designated safeguarding person. The report has been made and received by social services. Social services have initiated those initial inquiries and have made the decision then to pursue a section 126 inquiry, and in conclusion of those inquiries has determined that a strategy discussion or meeting is required. Within the procedures, you will see there are a number of pointers for practice that will assist in the key decision making that has to take place during these stages. So when the section 126 inquiry concludes that there is reasonable cause to suspect that an adult is at risk, a strategy discussion or meeting needs to be held either by telephone, video conference or face-to-face. The purpose of that discussion or meeting is to review the concerns there are about the individual and to determine the action that needs to be taken to ensure the safety of that individual. The procedures describe a strategy discussion or meeting as a forum to do the following things. The timescales set out in the procedures for holding the strategy discussion or meeting is 7 working days following the conclusion of the Section 126 inquiry, unless immediate action is necessary. It's important to remember that that strategy discussion stroke meeting needs to be person-centred. So any decisions about safeguarding arrangements will be made in partnership with the adult at risk. However, it is important to note at this point that the individual adult at risk will not take part in the strategy discussion or meeting. The procedures set out that the following individuals must be included in the strategy discussion or meeting. It may also be necessary to involve additional participants in the strategy discussion or meeting, depending on the individual's circumstances. As part of the strategy discussion or meeting, there will be a decision reached at the conclusion of the first strategy discussion or meeting. It could be that in some circumstances, there is a need to hold more than one strategy or discussion meeting. That will be dependent on the level of concern, on whether there are further pieces of information that need to be gathered or clarified. But once the group is satisfied it has the sufficient information, it is required under the procedures to reach a determination, a strategy determination. And there are 3 options as I am about to explore. You can see the 3 options we will cover. So, the first determination might be that the individual requires immediate protection. Our actions will be to remove the adult from the risk immediately. There may be a need to hold further strategy meetings. That will then lead to an adult protection conference where there will be a discussion as to whether a Part 4 care and support protection plan is needed and what the content of that will be. It's important to note that currently the procedures refer to a case conference. This is the terminology that was set out in the Handling Individual Cases guidance. It's actually an adult protection conference that will be held, and we will come on to the detail of that shortly. So that could be the first determination out of strategy discussion or meeting. The second is that the adult is not at risk but may have other needs for care and support. If that's the case, then social services will be required to initiate an assessment under Part 3 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, if it's appropriate, and put in place a care and support plan under Part 4 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. It could be the determination is that the adult is at risk and action is needed to protect that individual. If that's the case, further strategy meetings or discussions will be held as identified for determination number 1. There will be an adult protection conference, not a case conference, which will agree the care and support plan. This is the care and support protection plan, which is required under section . So, the third determination that may be reached is that the adult is at risk and action is needed to protect them. If that's the case, there may be a need for further strategy meetings or discussions. There will then be an adult protection conference held. Again, a reminder that currently the procedures refer to a case conference in light of the Handling Individual Cases guidance. However, we will be referring here on inwards to an adult protection conference. From that conference, a decision will be reached as to whether a Part 4 care and support protection plan is needed for that individual. If the decision is reached that an adult protection conference is required in order to continue the support and the protection around that individual, the conference will be seen as a case-specific multi-agency meeting. The difference this time is that this meeting will involve the individual adult at risk and their advocate if appropriate. Section 3, Part 2 goes on to explore and identify and determine the arrangements that are in place around the adult protection, care and support plan and the conference arrangements. The aim of the Adult Protection Conference, which again, a reminder, involves the individual themselves, is to share and discuss the inquiries undertaken under Section 126, provide feedback and evaluation of all the evidence, assess any ongoing risk of abuse and neglect. The aim of the conference may also be to produce or revise a care and support protection plan. There may be a circumstance whereby this is the initial conference that is being held and we are devising the care and support protection plan from the beginning. It could be that a care and support protection plan was put in place during the strategy stage because there was a need to immediately protect the individual. If that was the case, this conference will then be revising the care and support protection plan. The conference will also be used for ongoing reviews of any care and support protection plan that is put in place. The conference then, the aim of it will be to identify and agree any further protection actions that are required. There may be some actions to be taken against the perpetrator. The need to consider any regulatory, legal or statutory action, and to establish whether the adult at risk is satisfied with the outcome of the investigation. Again, you can see there are some pointers for practice in the procedures to support any individuals that attend those adult protection conferences. The procedures go on to describe the process that comes with an adult protection conference. There are no agreed timescales by which the conference must be held. And a number of conferences can be held based on the individual circumstances of the case. There is a requirement that each agency attending the conference completes a written report. Within the procedures, there is clear information setting out what information needs to be included in the report. Any reports that are written by agencies must be given to the chair of the conference 2 working days in advance of the actual conference itself, and any reports that are completed must be shared with the adult at risk prior to the conference, providing them with sufficient time to be able to digest, understand, respond to that report prior to conference. The procedures go on to set out an outline agenda for the conference and what records must be kept. In terms of responsibilities, again, a reminder that an adult protection conference can be held very early on in this process. The first responsibility is that of the lead coordinator for social services, or the delegated lead. That person will be responsible for arranging and chairing the strategy meetings, monitoring and reviewing the progress of the care and support protection plan, and determining whether adult safeguarding processes can be terminated. The lead practitioner is required to actively engage and work in partnership with the adult at risk. Take the multi-agency lead in preparing, completing, reviewing, delivering and revising the plan. Coordinating the completion and recording of any assessments and reviews, and preparing reports for review. It is important to note at this point that the lead practitioner does not necessarily have to work for social services. The lead practitioner will be determined at the initial, or one of the very first strategy meetings or groups or conference, to determine who is best placed to undertake that role, particularly given that that lead practitioner will have a very proactive role with the adult at risk themselves. The chair of the conference will normally be the lead coordinator for social services, but this role can be delegated. The chair must be satisfied that there is sufficient information available in order for the conference to make that informed decision about the continuing risk to the adult at risk. And finally, any practitioners who are actively supporting the adult at risk will be attending the conference, will be producing a report as set out in the previous slide. Their role is to objectively consider and analyse any concerns or information that's been gathered, the views, wishes and desired outcomes of the adult at risk. So at this point, it may be timely to consider what's been heard so far, to identify what your potential individual role may be within section 3 of the procedures. How will you fulfill that role in practice? Is there any further information or learning that you may require to undertake that role? So, to bring section 3 to a close, once again, we see a significant shift in culture and practice. We are moving from procedures that set out a very strong focus on the local authority having an investigatory role. The focus now is much more on making sure that person is safe, shaping responses in line with the views, wishes and feelings of the adult at risk themselves, ensuring that necessary actions are taken to protect and support the adult at risk, but that they are proportionate responses. Under POVA procedures, the local authority would have completed an initial evaluation to decide if the adult protection procedures apply. Under these new procedures, the local authority has a statutory duty to make inquiries under section 126 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, with 7 days to undertake those inquiries. Under POVA, the local authority would have conducted the initial evaluation. However, under the new procedures, the local authority may delegate responsibility for undertaking inquiries to another professional. The roles and responsibilities that were previously set out under POVA included a strategic lead or senior coordinating officer and an adult protection coordinator. We now move to lead practitioners and lead coordinators. So this video concludes section 3 of the procedures. The next video to follow will be section 4.